Every story has a beginning, a twist, and an ending you never saw coming. Welcome to Fable Frames, where words come to life and stories stay with you forever. Subscribe and step into today's story.
I met Daniel in college. He was the quiet, brilliant guy who had this effortless charm, the kind that didn't try too hard but still made you lean in. We got married 8 years ago, built a life together, had our daughter, Lila, in 2020. He became a professor at a medical school, and I settled into the life we had created. Comfortable, stable, good. Then, in December, my friend Mia took me out to lunch. "I need to tell you something," she said, stirring her iced coffee too fast, ice clinking against the glass. "It's about Daniel." I laughed, thinking she was about to tease me about him. Oh God, what now? She didn't laugh. I think something's going on between him and one of his students. The words were like ice water down my back. "What?" "I don't think," she exhaled, struggling to find the right words. "I haven't seen them together outside of school, but I've noticed how they look at each other. It's different." "Amia," I almost rolled my eyes. "You're making assumptions based on looks?" "Oh, that's why I didn't tell you sooner," she admitted. I wasn't sure if I was just imagining things, but it's been months now. It's subtle, but it's there. He's always been professional with students, distant even, but with her, it's like watching a slow burn romance movie. She looked genuinely pained. She looks at him like he's some tragic hero, and he looks at her the way he used to look at you. That part stung. I laughed it off, shook my head. "Mia, come on, do you hear yourself?" Yearning looks. "That's not proof of anything." She gave me this sad, knowing look, like she could already see the wreckage ahead. "Just talk to him." That night, after I put Lila to bed, I mentioned it to Daniel, casually, jokingly. I expected him to roll his eyes, scoff, say something like, "That's ridiculous." Instead, he froze. His face crumbled like I had just uncovered a secret he'd been desperately trying to bury. His eyes glistened, and then he said it. "I'm sorry." Something inside me cracked. "What?" My voice was barely a whisper. He swallowed hard. "I can't stop thinking about her. I've tried. I swear I've tried." The floor felt unsteady beneath me. "You're joking. I wish I was." He dragged a hand down his face. "I never wanted this to happen. I never meant for it to be anything. I should have told you sooner, but I thought if I ignored it, if I pushed it down, it would go away." I was shaking now. "Are you sleeping with her?" No. His answer came too fast, too desperate. "But God, no. I haven't even spoken to her outside of class. Nothing's happened." "You want it to," I said. He didn't answer. He didn't need to. His silence was louder than any confession. I sank onto the couch, my legs too weak to hold me up. "How long?" "How long?" He hesitated. "She wrote me a letter a year ago. She told me she had feelings for me." His voice was tight, like he hated saying it out loud. "I told her nothing could happen, that it was wrong. But after that, every time I saw her, it was like, I don't know." Something shifted. Closed my eyes. Jesus Christ, Daniel. Never cheated on you," he said again, like that was supposed to make it better. Know how messed up this is. I know how awful it sounds. I tried to focus on us, on our family. But the way I feel, it won't go away. I don't remember much of what happened next. I think I started packing. I think he stood there, watching, not stopping me. I left that night with Lila and drove to my parents' house. I kept waiting for him to show up, to beg me to stay, to tell me he'd made a mistake. But he never did. The days turned into weeks, and then months. He visited Lila, of course. Played with her, tucked her in, acted like the devoted father he always was. But with me, it was different. And we never talked about what happened. He never asked me to come home. And I never asked if he was seeing her now. I kept checking her social media. Her name was Emily. She was beautiful. The kind of beauty that made you pause. A doll-like features, delicate and perfect, and smart. Of course she was smart. That's what he would have fallen for. I'd sit in bed at night, staring at her photos, comparing myself. My plain face. My tired eyes. The lines that had started forming from years of exhaustion, of being a mother, a wife, a woman who had given up so much of herself for a life that was never guaranteed. She's the Meredith to his Derek, I thought that bitterly. Maybe I was never supposed to be his forever. Maybe I was just the chapter before her, the worst part. Some part of me still wanted him to come back. Still wanted him to say, I choose you, but he never did. And maybe that was my answer all along. A month passed, then another. The silence between Daniel and me became its own kind of language. One that spoke of resignation, of things left unsaid, of a marriage that had already been dismantled before I even walked out the door. One night, after I put Lila to bed, I sat on my parents' back porch. Wrapped in a blanket, my fingers curled around a mug of tea that had long since gone cold. The night was still, except for the occasional chirp of crickets. I should have been thinking about what came next. Divorce, custody, the logistics of untangling two lives that had been knotted together for over a decade. Instead, I was thinking about her. Emily, was she thinking about him right now? Was she lying awake in her apartment, biting her lip over a textbook while Daniel's voice echoed in her head, the way it used to echo in mine? Did she wonder if he would finally let himself be with her now that I was gone? I hated her. No, I envied her. That was worse. I hadn't realized my mother had come outside until she sat beside me with a sigh, holding her own cup of tea. You look like you're carrying the weight of the world, she murmured. I let out a hollow laugh. Maybe just my world. She didn't ask questions. She already knew enough. She just sat with me, silent and steady, the way mothers are when they know their daughters are breaking, but also know they can't put them back together. After a long pause, she finally said, You know, when your father and I had that rough patch when you were little, I spent months waiting for him to fix it, for him to choose me. And one day I woke up and realized, why was I waiting for someone to decide if I was worth loving? I turned to her surprised. She never talked about that time. She smiled sadly. I left, and it was the hardest thing I ever did. But it was also the first time I ever felt like my life was mine again. I swallowed hard. I don't know who I am without him. You do, she corrected gently. You just forgot. Daniel called one evening about 2 weeks later. I almost didn't pick up. Hey, I answered, my voice careful. I had promised myself I wouldn't let him hear how much I still missed him. Hey, he echoed. A pause. Then, can we talk? I clenched my jaw. About what? There was a long silence on his end. Everything. That was new. I hesitated, then finally said, Fine. But not here. Not in front of Lila. We met at a quiet coffee shop, one we used to go to when we were still young and stupid and thought love was the easiest thing in the world. Daniel looked tired. There were dark circles under his eyes, and he ran a hand through his hair in that familiar way he always did when he was overwhelmed. I didn't ask how he was. I wasn't sure I wanted to know. He started first. I never apologized properly. I let out a short laugh. No, you really didn't. He looked down, guilt written all over his face. I don't expect you to forgive me, and I know I've been a coward. I didn't fight for us the way I should have. Yeah, I said quietly. You didn't, he sighed. And I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't even know if it's her or if it's just me trying to chase something that makes me feel like I'm not stuck. And that's not fair to you. Or to her. I didn't say anything. I just watched him, waiting. I was never supposed to be this guy, he said, voice thick. The guy who lets his marriage fall apart. The guy who hurts you like this. But you are, I said simply. His throat bobbed as he swallowed. I know. I took a deep breath. Are you with her now? He flinched. No. Do you want to be? He hesitated. I don't know. And that was my closure. Right there. Not a confession, not an apology, not a promise to change. Just a man who had already let go long before I had even realized I needed to do the same. I nodded, feeling lighter than I had in months. Okay. Daniel looked at me, searching my face. That's it. That's it, I said, standing up. We'll figure out the legal stuff later. But I'm done waiting for you to decide if I'm enough. For the first time, he looked afraid. Maybe he hadn't expected me to let go before he did. Maybe he thought I'd always be waiting, that I wasn't that woman anymore. I left the coffee shop, stepping into the cold night air and inhaled deeply. The wind bit at my skin, but for the first time in a long time, I felt warm. Because for the first time, I wasn't someone's wife. I was me again.
Thanks for watching this video. If you want more of this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on any updates. Till next time.